crazy. I sat there and blinked my eyes. $17 for 3 Filet-O-Fishes at McDonald's? Are you kidding me?
I'm in for $86,000 a month before I sell a single sandwich.
Let me ask you something. Do you remember when a Big Mac meal was like $5? The dollar menu was actually the dollar menu at McDonald's. Do you remember the $5 foot long? It seems like it wasn't necessarily that long ago, but it was also something that you remembered because the prices were so cheap. Today, all of that is gone. And it didn't happen slowly. It actually happened so subtly that most people didn't notice until you pull up into the drive-thru and you heard the total and you thought, what in the world is going on? Today, we're going to find out exactly what happened because there's a version of this story that is either the corporation was too greedy or the expenses were killing these restaurants, and so they had to raise price. I think the real story is somewhere in the middle. Let's get into it.
Fast food costs just as much as a sit-down restaurant. We were at Chick-fil-A, and it cost $60 for
Yikes.
4 of us. $60. That is a sit-down restaurant with a drink.
Probably not quite $60. I mean, I guess it depends on the restaurant you go to, but it's not that far off, especially if you have young kids and they're ordering off the kids menu and, you know, you and your spouse are just getting like specific kind of meals. I mean, grown people meal like $25. So, I mean, it's not that far off. $60 for a sit down with tip and everything is a little bit of a stretch, but I mean, it's not like she's way off.
For the both of us and a kid's meal.
2 kids meal.
2 kids meals. And that we're spending that on fast food. That's crazy to me.
Fast food has turned into sit-down restaurant prices.
I guess so.
It's reality, man. The cost of fast food is gone substantially higher, right? And people are going to have to start making choices about what they're going to do.
I understand that inflation is ridiculous and it's out of hand and whatnot, but I just got Taco Bell and I got 3 items and it cost me $19. How is a fast food restaurant that's supposed to be cheap cost $19?
Well, let's first talk about how you eat in Taco Bell and it's one of your favorite restaurants and your stomach is just okay. How many of you actually enjoy a Taco Bell menu item and you're okay the next day? Do you get the bubble guts at all? I want to know. Leave that comment in the comments section about how you feel when you eat Taco Bell.
A Crunchwrap Supreme, a quesadilla, and a 5-layer burrito. Average basically
A Crunchwrap Supreme, that would take you out.
basically $7 a piece. That is outrageous that it's that expensive. And yes, it's a guilty pleasure. I love Taco Bell. What am I going to do about it? But how is the fast food $20 for 3 items? That's stupid. I'm still going to eat it because like I said, it's a guilty pleasure. It should not cost $20. Taco Bell, do better, please.
Hilarious reaction. I'm still going to eat it. I'm going to be mad and eat it at the same time because it's my guilty pleasure. But I just want to make the record shown that I'm quite dissatisfied with how Taco Bell is treating me at the moment. Listen, it's expensive to run a restaurant. It's one of those industries I've never really been tempted to get into despite my entrepreneurial history because the margins are historically lower for those types of restaurants.
You want to know why your sandwich costs so much at the local restaurant?
Please tell us.
My friend Dan sent me a text the other day. He was at one of my restaurants. He said, Brian, I just ordered a BLT at $16. You realize it's just bread, bacon, lettuce, and tomato.
Okay. I suspect that he's going to go into his operational costs, which for restaurants are expensive. Really expensive.
I said, yeah, Dan, but let me give you some restaurant perspective. In today's economy, my rent is $20,000 a month.
Oh,
my utilities
my
are $6,000 a month. And my labor is currently running about $60,000 a month.
Oh, my goodness.
That's at 28%. So I'm in for $86,000 a month before I sell a single sandwich.
$86,000 a month before he sells a single sandwich. Statistically, half of the people who are watching this YouTube video don't even make that $86,000 in a year. Okay. So let's talk about the expenses to run this business. It is expensive. So I get it. Expenses have gone up. They have dramatically. I mean, to operate businesses like this with the staff that you need to kind of constantly keep it open and running, very, very expensive.
At a 32% food cost, I have about $11 profit in that sandwich. That means I have to sell 93,800 sandwiches a year or 257 a day just to break even and make no money. 1.5 million in revenue and I don't make a dime. That's why your sandwich costs so much. That's a reflection on our economy.
So there it is. Imagine making $1.5 million in revenue to break even. He has to sell 257 sandwiches a day. just to get to the other side of that. That is insane. And I get it. If you don't own a business, if you've never run a business, or particularly you're not in a situation where you are not looking at the numbers, it might appear like it might be something different than what it really is. But it's expensive to run a restaurant business. They have notoriously thin margins, something between 9 and 11% from what I understand. And 1.5 million to break even is, I mean, based on his numbers, if we just use his numbers alone, you know, you can kind of see why the BLT is $16.
Please tell me why I just went through McDonald's to get a Diet Coke. And I was on the phone with my husband while I was ordering, and he's like, wait, you're at McDonald's?
I've never met someone who just went to McDonald's just to buy a Diet Coke. Don't you normally just go into like a corner store or a gas station? I don't know.
A Filet-O-Fish sandwich. He's like, get me two. It's Friday and Lent at McDonald's. We're like, great, I'll just eat that for lunch and then we'll make something else for dinner. So whatever, I order 3 Filet-O-Fishes in a separate order because she wouldn't let me add it on to my Diet Coke order. Anyways, that's a whole nother story. It pissed me off. Pull around, order 3 Filet-O-Fishes, not the meal, just sandwich. She clarified. She said, the sandwich or the
Tell him why you mad, son.
meal? And I said, just the sandwich. And she said, 3 of them? I said, yes. Tell me why it was $17 for 3 Filet-O-Fishes on Friday during Lent at McDonald's. I'm not crazy. I sat there and blinked my eyes and then I just pulled away because I was so angry, which probably was rude, but like $17 for 3 Filet-O-Fishes at McDonald's? Are you kidding me?
All right. First of all, yes, it's rude. The employee who is checking you in to the register is likely not responsible for the prices that she's charging you based on her job. Got to have better perspective. Don't do that to employees who are just working to try to earn money for their family. Leave people with their dignity if you're upset, always. So let's talk about that. Secondly, yes, it's expensive. We just heard a breakdown of the cost it takes for that restaurant owner, even for the BLT, to break even. 257 sandwiches, $1.5 million a year. I can guarantee you that it's even more expensive with franchise fees for people who own McDonald's and Burger Kings to break even as well. Imagine what they have to do to break even so that they can actually make money on the other side. I have some thoughts about this. Let's hit it. I want to just arm you with some numbers because once you see these, you'll understand a little bit about why people are losing their mind at the drive-thru. There was a study by Finance Buzz that tracked prices of menu items at fast food restaurants across restaurants between 2014 and 2024. What they found was restaurants had raised prices on average, you ready for this number, by 60%. For context, inflation over the period between 2014 and 2024 was about 31%. But the price of these menu items doubled. And that's part of the reason why people are losing their mind right now. So fast food prices didn't just keep up with inflation. They blew past it. They doubled it. Let's put some data behind this. McDonald's, they increased their prices by 100% between 2014 and 2024. Popeyes increased their prices 86% between 2014 and 2024. Taco Bell increased their prices 81% between 2014 and 2024. Chipotle increased their prices 75% between 2014 and 2024. I could down the list, but the reality is you get the point. The point is that these fast food chains have increased their prices dramatically. I know some of you are thinking, okay, I see the percentage, but I don't know what that means in real dollar value. So let me give you the actual dollar value of what we're talking about in terms of price increases. So for McDonald's, who had a whole dollar menu, they now are charging, in some places, $18 for a Big Mac meal. Taco Bell's beefy 5-layer burrito, back in 2014, it cost $1.59. 2024, when that 10-year period that this survey was conducted, $3.69. And Lord knows what it costs right now in 2026. Probably upwards of closer to $3, if not $4 in some places, depending on where you go. What about Chipotle? Everybody loves Chipotle, right? That bowl. In 2019, it was $6.50 for a bowl. Today, that same chicken bowl, $10.70. So as you can see, prices have dramatically increased. So here's the wild part. And this is the part that people complain about. Remember, we talked about how some people are going to talk about, is this corporate greed, like we mentioned earlier, or is this really just the cost of expenses going up? As a business owner and operator myself, I can tell you that part of it, both the corporations want to make the money as higher profit as possible, but at the same time, the cost of expenses have exploded over the last decade. But the prices for fast food items have far outpaced what they're paying in labor. So let's talk about the expenses. So here are the main cost drivers of fast food. Labor. In almost all businesses, one of the biggest expenses you're going to actually pay for is labor. It's real, but it's not the whole story. In the restaurant industry, labor is by far the number one expense that all restaurants are going to have. Industry benchmarks between 25 to 35% of revenue, and in some states where they have raised the minimum wage. And if you are not familiar, I did a video on the California minimum wage for fast food workers going to $20. You should watch that. Labor is going to be by far the biggest expense in restaurants, probably costs around 25 to 35% of revenue. And not just that, in some cases, that cost has gone up because of the minimum wage required in fast food restaurants. And I did a whole video about that. You can watch that here. Another expense that restaurants have, of course, is overhead, utilities, and technology, which comes in at about 30 to 35% of their expenses now. In some cases, restaurants have gone autonomous, so they don't necessarily have the labor cost, but they still have labor because the restaurant, of course, still has to be managed. No doubt they have service contracts, and they replace a lot of that labor with maintenance contracts. That costs about 30 to 35%, as I just previously mentioned. And then you have the costs of doing delivery services, which can hover between 15 to 30% of the business. Okay, so food ingredients, 30%, labor, 30%, overhead, utilities, rent, and tech, 30%, profit, maybe 6 to 9%, and everything else, about 5% of the total operation cost of running a fast food restaurant. So these restaurants could make $1 million a year, but they're only really generating 6 to 9% profit on their business. That's a lot of revenue, a lot of expenses, in a slim margin at the least. Here are my final thoughts. The cost of operating a business, especially a fast food restaurant, are in many cases legitimate. Labor is more expensive, especially in states where they have minimum wage. Ingredients are more expensive. Rent is more expensive. Purchasing the land is more expensive. So life in general has become more expensive. I mean, not just for us individually as people, but also for businesses, particularly small businesses as well. But the prices of these items have far outpaced inflation to the tune of about double. So there is a mixed bag in basically what you have to analyze when you're trying to figure out, is it greed versus is it restaurant owners trying to be profitable? And we heard all the expenses that go into running a restaurant in the clip that we previously watched. Here's what I think. Fast food was never just food. This was a promise though, right? You pull up, you're going to get food for lower the cost, faster in pace than anything else. And you're going to be able to get in, get out, and get food without having to make the meal yourself for a lower price. However, the promise of fast food being cheap is probably gone right now, and people are experiencing it to a higher degree. When the floor rises, meaning minimum wage, and the general expenses it takes to run a restaurant, then some things get pushed off. And in this case is going to be pushing off your patience to the edge of the table because what you expected to be cheaper is now not so cheap. Some people have talked about this is the end of fast food. I think that there is a real conversation to be had about what's going to be the future of fast food industry. I particularly think that it's going to go to robotics. You're going to see a lot of automation, and people will continue to lose their job in fast food because they're going to try to make labor, frankly, cheaper. And what are you going to do about that? Well, your job as a business owner is to make a profit, but also it is to try to reduce expenses and become way more efficient as much as possible. So drop in the comments. What have you been seeing in your area? Are you seeing fast food prices go crazy? What have you paid for a Big Mac or Taco Bell, right? I don't know what you eat for fast food. Tell me what you eat. Tell me what you pay. Drop it in the comments. I'll see you on the next one.